Hey guys, welcome back. If you haven't been here before, thanks for coming and visiting us. Hopefully I can get some information to you that'll help you solve a problem you have. Today, what we're going to be doing, what this video is going to be about, is replacing the clock spring, which will also obviously show you how to replace the airbag as well, since the airbag's on top of the clock spring. But the most important part is, why am I replacing my clock spring? So I have an issue with my radio, and yes, it is an aftermarket radio, but what happens is I'll be driving and it'll just shut off. So the top portion of the screen actually shows the original screen from Range Rover. As you can see, it's black. Right now, it's officially shut off, and the only way I can get it to come back on is disconnect the battery and reconnect the battery. That's kind of annoying. The problem could be the actual unit itself, but I do recall having this problem one time before this radio was in. The problem with this radio is you'll see the power button's no longer there, so I can't physically hit a power button to turn it off and back on. So that's kind of the problem I have. Anyhow, there's a few different things that could be a cause of this. For starters, some of the things that aren't working in addition to that, my heated steering wheel isn't working. If I hit the rev limiter on this car, redline it, it will actually die out and come back on, like it's losing power. And then sometimes it'll tell me on the dash that the battery's low when it's not low. So even though you'll see that I have a aftermarket heads-up display here that shows that it's running at 15 volts right now, it'll still say the battery's low. It makes no sense. So it could be a few different things. It could be the clock spring that's losing connection. It could be a bad ground, or it could be a bad module. Now, I've tried replacing this unit here and the little box that controls the heater unit inside, because if any one module fails, it can make other things fail. So the way these modules work is they run in a CAN bus, and you can think of that as kind of a telephone line that connects module to module and allows them to talk to each other. Well, if you get a bad, let's say a phone line that's disconnected, it's going to disrupt all the other ones. So with this specific vehicle, you have a low, a medium, and a high CAN bus. All the problems that I have right now are on my medium CAN bus, which I don't think is coincidence. Something's happening with it. So whether that be a bad module or bad ground, it's got to be causing the problem that we have right now. So to continue, I am going to be showing you how to take this airbag off and get the clock spring out and change that. This will be part one of a series of probably 2 different parts for a video. I'm trying to fix this. The second video is actually going to be cleaning up all our grounds, and there's a lot of them in this vehicle, so you want to check that video out as well if this doesn't fix your problem. Anyhow, we're going to get to it. I've already taken off my shift paddles, as you can see, so I'm going to try to get a better angle and show you how to get to everything. Myself, I went ahead and made a tool to pull the airbag out. You can buy one on Amazon if you don't have the ability to weld or make a tool. It's got to be a pretty hard piece of steel. You want a short tip enough to get inside there and grab and pull out. The other videos that I've made before, or I've seen before, sorry, they don't really tell you much. They don't tell you if you're pushing in or pulling out or what you're doing, and you actually have to get behind a kind of a metal bar and pull it out to be able to pry this thing out. So that said, we're going to get moving now, and we're going to start popping this thing out. Alright, so our first step is obviously going to be to disconnect the battery. We don't want airbags getting blown in our face because we're messing with the connectors. Normally I would have disconnected the ground side, not the positive, but my ground has been disconnected so many times, this is starting to wear out a little bit. Plus I'm going to put a couple new grounds to it just to be safe. But FYI, and the instructions even tell you in here, don't just jump out the car and disconnect it. You need to basically turn off your ignition, wait 2 minutes, and then disconnect your battery. Like I said, if you're doing it yourself, if you can, remove this bolt here, take off your negative, maybe put a towel or something between there, piece of cardboard, so something isn't gonna move and get connected while you're doing this. All right, next step, I like to step on the brake pedal for about 20 or 20 seconds just to discharge any kind of electricity that might still be in the battery. I just finished doing that, and now we want to go ahead and try to get this airbag out. What we're going to do, we are reaching back here. I don't know if you can see right here. There's a little metal bar right there. You can see that. We need to get behind that and pull out. So, not easy to do with the position I'm in, obviously. But I'm going to get behind that real quick and pry that out, and I'll show you what that looks like. Alright, you can't really tell, but I have that completely out now. And And what you want to do, at least what I do, is I probably put something just between the airbag and the steering wheel here, so it won't pop back in when I'm pulling the other side out. They do make this little tiny hole to go in right here. Good luck seeing in that hole. I don't know if you can see that there, sorry. Good luck seeing that hole trying to get your little tool in there if you don't have this access right here. This makes it a world easier. Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and take the other side off right now, and I'll show you how we pull off the airbag. All right, once you get that second side pulled off, it literally just pops out. You'll see it jump out at you. And here is our airbag connections. Now, some of you may have taken out an airbag before, and you're thinking, oh, I know how those connectors work. They're all different, so don't assume you've done one or a Ford or anything else and that they're going to be the same. Some twist out. These particular ones need to be pinched and pulled straight out. You need to kind of lightly wiggle them out. You can start by removing this ground right here. It's just got a little lever. Pops off. And then again, I'm just going to take a small pair of needle nose, wiggle this thing as I pinch these little clips here, and wiggle them out. Alright, so I'm going to show you if I can do this here with one hand. We're going to get our pliers in here. We're going to pinch these lightly. We're just going to wiggle it out. See that? Real simple. Don't try to yank on it if it's coming. You just got to work with them. These are kind of non-replacement items, so if they break, I don't know, I wouldn't want to replace it. Anyhow, here's our airbag. We'll go ahead and set that to the side. Now, this is what your new clock spring will look like. I went ahead and bought this one off, I want to say it was eBay, and it was actually pretty cheap. You can find them on Amazon too. I'll put a link in the description below. I think it was like less than 40 bucks. So, I mean, I guess you never really know with the China part, and I'm sure they're all made in China. Anyhow, but just looking at the connectors, you can kind of see where our clock spring is down in here. We've got to disconnect everything from here. Earlier I shared with you that if your heater isn't working, there's a little element box. Currently I don't have it in it. I took it out. This is the box here. It actually is mounted down in the back here. You'll see the wiring and it'll run up to the clock spring there. But to get this part off, if you need to, there's two screws in the very back here, and they're hex screws. In fact, this is one of the screws right here. I don't know if that'll focus or not. So there's two of them, one on the top, one on the bottom. You got to pop those out, and then there's just some clips that allow it to basically remove itself. But the next step here again is going to be removing just these connectors here, and then the main bolt here, and we're going to pull the wheel right off. I figured I'd show you this since I kind of talked about it, but there's the box. I'm actually reconnecting mine, but if you want to take yours out, you got a plug that's going to have to disconnect from the right controls right here. There's a plug that goes in the bottom that actually connects to the heating elements in the wheel here. And then there's one plug that plugs into your clock spring right up here, which is this one here. All right, it's time to take out the bolt now. It is a 16 millimeter bolt. And what I typically use is a cordless impact. The reason why, it's not as powerful as an air impact, even though they say they're not. So it usually doesn't do damage to the nut itself, but you might find that you have to break this thing loose with a breaker bar, which is my case. It's down there too tight. A lot of times they have Loctite on them, so you really got to put some torque into them to get them off. But it is counterclockwise, typical bolt to spin out. All right, so I just broke it loose with really just a 1/2 inch socket driver. So now we're just going to spin it out, pull it out, and the steering wheel is going to pull straight back towards us. Before I do that, I'm going to try to get the steering wheel as straight as possible. Not that that matters, but it's just kind of safe procedure to do so. There's the bolt. It's time to pull it out. I do want to show you guys something. Most vehicles, they all have a notch with all these spline teeth. It'll be like a wider notch, so you can only put the steering wheel on exactly the way it goes. Not Land Rover. You can put it on sideways if you want to. So you'll see it. There is a little tiny, basically a notch inside the indentation inside the spline itself and on the steering wheel. You want to make sure that those are lined up. But all you're going to do is basically wiggle and pull it straight back. And there's our wheel off. And here's our clock spring. Now keep in mind, your clock spring might not be bad, so you don't want to ruin it. You want to make sure when you pull it off that you keep it. You might even want to take a zip tie to zip tie it. You'll see the new one comes with a like kind of a white clip. That's to stop you from spinning it, because let's say I accidentally spin this thing one circle to the left. When I go to put this thing on and I go to turn my steering wheel all the way to the left, it's going to overextend it and rip the wires out of it. And that could even set off the airbag, so you don't want that. But like I said, you can basically just run a zip tie around the whole unit like this and stop that from happening before you put the new one on. Okay, so next step, we need to get our covers off, our upper and our lower covers. Most of these things typically just pop off. You can see I got that one out there. It's a little bit tighter than it looks. You don't have to take the whole thing off. You pretty much just need to be able to get to these two screws right here and the two lower ones. That's kind of key there. You'll see that there's two clips, one on this side, one on this side. I don't know if there's any screws underneath. I'll let you know here in a second. Let me get those off. All right, just as I figured, there are two screws, torque screws, one here, one here. You're going to pull those out, and that will come right down for your access point. So now what we want to do is we want to take a small Phillips and take out all 4 screws, and we're going to pull this thing straight back. All right, so all 4 screws are out. You can see one here, one down there, one there, and one there. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab our unit. I'm not going to do this on camera because I'll probably end up screwing it up, but we're just going to pull this unit straight back. You can see it's already loose right now. And I'm going to put my zip tie on it so it doesn't move. We'll get the new one installed and we'll move from there. One more thing I almost forgot, we have to disconnect our 2 plugs at the bottom before we can pull this thing out, or before we can basically remove it. So let's do that now. All right, there's the old clock spring. It is zip tied, it's unplugged, and it's ready to go back in the box so we can put the new one on. So obviously we're going to reverse the process. I'm going to connect these new plugs to the new one, slide the new one in, I'm going to put the 4 screws in there. I won't make you see all that. I will show you it when it's back in. All right, so as you can see, the new one's in. We got all 4 screws in, 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. I also wanted to tell you guys, as a side note, there are 2 guide pins. You'll see there's one here and there's one here. And the reason for those is those allow you to make sure that your screw holes are lined up where they should be and that you don't miss a hole when you're screwing them in. That way this thing's nice and tight in there. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna bolt this thing back up, and then I'll show you next what we gotta do with this little plastic circlip here. All right, all bolted back up. Now what you want to do is you want to take this clip here, and you're just going to basically bend it down because there's a tab on the end of it that we want to break off to stay in there. So basically pull it back like that and snap it off. And if you look at the old one, you'll see that it has same thing. So we're perfectly set up now. We just want to make sure we stay at top dead center here. We're going to get the steering wheel back on now. All right, the wheel's back on. You'll just want to make sure that you take your 2 airbag wires, you slide them through a hole up here. And remember that we have to line up our notches here on the steering wheel so we can keep it straight. And then basically slide that steering wheel, just push it straight on, slides off, or slides on just as easy as it come off. Then we're going to put our bolt back in, we're going to torque it down, and we're going to get the airbag back in. Okay, bolt's back in. Next, our wires are going to get plugged in. Remember our white plug connector. We have our red one for the heated steering wheel if you have that option. And then we're going to connect the airbags as well as the ground, pop everything back on. All right, wires are all connected. Now all we're going to do is we're going to line this thing up just like that. We're going to push till it clips. And there it is. You'll know it's clipped in when it's seated solid and all the way along that edge, all the way top and bottom. You got no play when you push on it. So steering wheel's back on. I have to go ahead and put my 2 screws back in this since I had mine off. You may not have to do that if you didn't. But the step now is going to be just connecting the battery and making sure everything works. All right, so the steering wheel's on, bolted in, everything's tightened up. Now for me, I got to put on my shift pedals. So if you don't have this, just skip this step. If you do, it's pretty straightforward. You just got to connect your little plug back here, which you'll see sticking out, into its connector, and you'll have one torque screw that holds it basically through the back. So what you'll want to do is you want to turn your wheel like mine. This way you'll be able to access the top and the bottom. So let's get those put on. All right guys, airbags back in, paddles are back on, battery's hooked up as you can see. So we're gonna go ahead and start this thing. Now I never sit inside it when I start it for the first time when I mess with an airbag. I don't know, maybe it's just me, I like to be safe, but I kind of just sit myself out a little ways and start it up. So far so good. Let's check for any lights. Left front door is open. All right, we're good. We know the radio is working. That's the splash screen. That doesn't necessarily mean it fixed our problem, because it would have done that before, because we reset the battery. But so far so good. And it'll probably take 4 or 5 drives for me to make sure that this is working or not. So rather than doing that, I'm gonna go ahead and just fix and do all the grounds, clean all the grounds, and you'll see that here in tomorrow's video. But hopefully this, if it was your problem, this fixed it. Throw me a thumbs up. If you're not already, please subscribe. And thanks for watching.